I'm a dork that likes movies, and today we're going to talk about the underrated holiday classic, While You Were Sleeping, starring Sandra Bullock and Bill Pullman. While You Were Sleeping is one of those movies that you just don't see anymore. It's a low-key, sweet, honest, sentimental film with a modest budget and relatable characters. It's not exactly a Christmas movie per se, but it takes place around Christmas and it has several sweet holiday themes. Now that it's approaching its 30th anniversary, it looks like a Christmas movie, but it actually came out in the spring of '95. It served as the vehicle that would take Sandra Bullock from that girl in Speed to a leading lady and the true darling of the '90s box office. Demi Moore and Julia Roberts were offered the role, but deemed it too quaint, I guess, and that allowed Bullock to power this little movie that could to a fantastic success, raking in over $180 million at the box office on a budget of just $17 million. Whenever I look at movies like this that had that kind of success, it makes me wonder why Hollywood execs don't make this anymore. They don't even attempt to recreate that formula. It took an ensemble cast of competent, non-superstar actors and made serious bank. As a guy who likes to gamble on long shots, it doesn't make any sense to me that they can't figure out how to do that anymore. It was dependent on something that it seems they just don't know how to do anymore, and that is produce a well-written script. Written by Daniel G. Sullivan, who I can find no writing credits for other than this, or much information at all for that matter, and Fred LeBeau, who also appears to just not exist anymore. The story takes us through a love triangle centered around family and friendship and a really screwy turn of events that is so implausible that it appears it would actually almost happen. Truth is stranger than fiction. Originally planned for filming in New York, the backdrop was changed to Chicago over budgetary concerns, and that's one of the luckiest things that could have happened. I can't picture it working well in any city other than Chicago. There's something about Bullock's dark hair, her mannerisms, the trains, the street scenes, and the hot dog vendor that just make you love Chicago. That, plus the Callahan family that our heroine Lucy Moderates accidentally gets involved with, just seems like they belong in Chicago, or at least somewhere in the Midwest. When I think about all the movies featuring Chicago that are the most intriguing, this was one of the first ones that comes to mind, along with The Fugitive. And in both of them, it seems like the city is another character that kind of enhances the film. This story starts with our girl next door, Lucy, preparing for Christmas alone, with nobody to share her life with except for her cat, the landlord's boorish son who's always hitting on her, and a few friends from work. A lonely job in a token booth on the Chicago L. She sits there daydreaming about the people she sees, especially the guy we'll come to know as Peter. As an aside, one of the reasons the screenplay really works is it gives Lucy some moderating to do. Her monologue at the open and just talking to herself throughout the film seem to convey the sense of loneliness she has. On Christmas, she sits alone in her booth, the only employee that could work because everybody else had plans. Peter, the boy she's been daydreaming about, comes through and says Merry Christmas, and Lucy is so tongue-tied she can't even speak. While she sits agonizing over missing her opportunity to engage, seduce, and marry her dream guy, Peter gets attacked on the L and pushed onto the train tracks and knocked out cold. Lucy jumps on the tracks and rescues him from the oncoming train just in time. And this is the one heroic act that she doesn't know will end up determining the rest of her entire life. From there, we move on to the hospital, where Lucy is talking to herself sarcastically, saying, I was going to marry him. Overheard by the staff, they assume that she's his fiancée, and she gets access to the room where he's now in a coma. Then they bring in Peter's somewhat estranged middle-class family, all except for Pullman's character, his brother Jack. And then the confusion escalates. Lucy's unsure how to tell them about the mix-up while they're so distraught, and before she knows it, she's been invited to Christmas with the family while their son lays in a coma. As lonely as she is, she debates on it, but eventually accepts because she can't stand the thought of Christmas alone. Now, if that all sounds kind of convoluted, it is, but somehow it works. The pacing is perfect, the laughs, which are more chuckles than anything else, are consistent, and the first 15 minutes of the movie is all about Lucy, so we get to know her pretty well before the chaos starts. Then we meet the family all at once in the hospital, and then there's a full 30 minutes before Jack is introduced, completing the love triangle that's going to drive the rest of the film. When I said it's a competent cast, I wasn't joking. Peter Boyle as the father is very believable, and I feel like it's the role that won him his later work as Frank Barone on Everybody Loves Raymond. The father he's playing here is a little more sophisticated than Frank was, but you can definitely see shades of his TV character coming out in the elder Callahan. Peter Gallagher is perfect as the shallow and pretentious Peter Callahan, and the rest of the family, while their characters aren't as well developed, are very viable. Jack Warden as the neighbor and family friend Saul brings some color to the film as the elder statesman who's in on all the hijinks, trying to help Lucy navigate a sticky situation. He acts almost as a grandfather to Lucy. Now, Warden would go on to appear in a handful of films after this, but in my mind, While You Were Sleeping serves as a bookend on what was a great career as a character actor. The thing that pulls it all together, though, is Pullman, who apparently attempted to quit the role at one point over an insult from one of the producers. Luckily, he stayed at the urging of his agent, and it's great that he did, because the chemistry between he and Bullock is what pulls the whole thing together. Both of them play their roles in an understated, heroes never hurry kind of way that makes the viewer just relax and sink into the story. I won't tell the rest of the story, because if you've never seen it, you should. I watch it every year, usually around the holidays, and it's held up really well. There's a few things that date it the same way every 30-year-old movie gets dated, but they actually work in its favor here because they just add nostalgia to this incredibly sweet romantic comedy. So what do you think? Love it? Hate it? Leave a comment below. And if you like content like this, please remember to like and subscribe to the video so I can keep the channel growing. 200 followers doesn't seem like much, but it took me a minute to get there. So for everybody who's still watching, a very sincere thank you. And if it's Christmas when you're watching, Merry Christmas.